Hello, my name is Tanner Herrick, and for my motor learning project I'm going to be applying Bernstein's theory of the frozen degrees of freedom to a long jump technique for track and field. Bernstein's theory of frozen degrees of freedom, introduced in 1967, really benefits athletes by breaking down complex motor skills and complex movements into smaller, simpler motions that can be learned by the body and then incorporated back together in order to have one smooth, efficient motion. Applying this theory to the long jump in track and field, the goal is to jump obviously as far as you can in the pit, in the sand, while getting the body's center of gravity as far forward as possible so that the body doesn't fall back, making a mark further back in the sand. In order to do this, there's a lot of very technical, small motions that need to be put together, not only very quickly, but done very correctly in order to get this motion down most efficiently. So, in order to break this down with my athletes, we do what we call the chair drill. So we find a place to sit down where the athletes can sit at the edge of the chair with their knees at a more or less a 90-degree angle. Right now, the frozen degrees of freedom, or the limbs, joints, and muscles that we're going to keep frozen, are all going to be in the legs, and we're going to work on the degree of freedom of the arms. So the first thing that we want our athletes to do, understanding that distance comes from speed, is work on a good arm motion. So our athletes need to have 90-degree angles with their arms, and we're going to work on a running motion. So we're going to freeze all the other joints as we work on this running motion. This is the motion that we will have as we approach the board, getting ready for the long jump. As our athletes get this small motion mastered, we're going to freeze this, and we're going to continue on to another degree of freedom, which is our transition into the jump. This transition starts with the hand in the air. As we jump in the air, our hand is going to rotate through. This hand will freeze at the top, and this hand meets it with arms extended. So you'll notice we're still keeping all of the muscles, joints, and limbs frozen on the bottom half of the body, and we're not worried about the running motion anymore. We're working on this motion right here from arm extended, rotate around, and meet it back up top. Once again, arm extended, rotate around, and meet back up top. Moving on further into Bernstein's theory, we're going to combine and reorganize these two degrees of motion to get one more fluid skill. So from our run that we worked on earlier, we're going to combine that with our transition, extending the arm up, bringing the arms together, and meeting up at the top. Now, as we freeze that motion, we're going to continue to unfreeze another degree of motion, which is in the legs. The next degree of freedom that we're going to unfreeze is the knees driving forward to the chest. We have our athletes sit in the position that we're freezing at here, and we're going to practice our athletes bringing the knees high to the chest. What our athletes want to focus on here is bending at the hips here and not at the back. We're going to freeze the other joints and bend at the hips. As the athletes practice bending at the hips and freezing everything else, then their body can practice and feel that motion of bending at the hip, so that when they're in the full motion, the body can learn and perform that motion efficiently. So the following motion from the bent hips is going to be extending the heels out and driving them down into the sand. This is going to happen at the same time as the arms are driving down. In order to simulate this, we have to bring the knees up. So we will freeze our arms here, and then we're going to unfreeze them, drive our hands down as our knees extend forward like this. And then we freeze here. Once again, we're going to drive the knees forward, bend at the hips, and then drive the heels into the sand. The following degree of freedom that we're going to demonstrate is from the landing position where the heels are in the sand. We're going to demonstrate our follow-through, which is driving the heels back toward the buttocks and bringing the arms around in a hugging motion like this. This is important to practice for our athletes because we don't want our hands that came down to our sides to come back up to our sides in order to avoid scraping the sand and having a shorter jump. So from the hands back here, we're going to bring the arms off to the side like we're hugging and drive the heels back to the butt. We freeze and practice the hugging motion. As we continue, we incorporate these motions together, starting from the run into the transition and into the whole motion. You can see that as we unfreeze one degree of freedom to the next, we're able to incorporate and teach the athletes that the small motions are going to be more efficient. We unfreeze the arms, we work on the transition separately, and then we incorporate them together. As we unfreeze the legs, we also unfreeze the arms, and then we work from here, from this frozen motion, and work on the last technique, bringing the heels together, keeping the center of mass forward so that the athlete continues forward and the mark in the long jump pit is the furthest forward that we can make it. So once again, the full motion from our run into the transition, heels, and the hugging motion to finish it. And in a running motion, this would propel the athlete forward for the longest and most efficient long jump possible. Thanks to Bernstein's frozen degrees of freedom theory, we're able to understand that and teach new athletes to the long jump that these small technical skills can be developed by using this chair drill in order to best learn the small motions that are going to improve the athlete's jump overall. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.